Hi, I'm Father Scott Vanderveer, and I wanted to share with you something that might be able to help you during this long lockdown that we are all in. Some people, after watching my last video, have asked, "How are you staying calm, Father?" You've got a lot to lose here. And it's true, I have a lot of worries about this long-term lockdown. For one, I have a strong sense that churches will be late to return. Even if we open up our economy again, I really think that church services will not be back right away. After all, gathering 200 or 300 people into one room all together, many of those people elderly or at risk for some reason, that's probably not something that our leaders will recommend for our society for quite a while. And as long as we're not gathering together, we have no reliable source of income. There's no collection basket being passed. And we have a number of employees at our two parishes in Ravenna and Coxsackie, and among them is a family with 4 children where both the mom and the dad depend on us for their income. So I do have a lot of worries, much like the rest of you do. I have parents that are above 70 that are at risk. I have lots of parishioners that I am very close to who have COPD or some other pre-existing condition that makes them incredibly vulnerable to this. But whenever there has been a crisis in my life, one of my prayers has been to ask God to give me an image or a metaphor that can help me to process it. I find that if I can take whatever we're going through and apply some kind of story that kind of maybe isn't true but could possibly be true or is always and everywhere true, if I can apply that to what I'm going through, sometimes I can find it a little bit easier to manage. And God was really good to me this time and gave me an image that is really helping me and keeping me calm. And I would like to share it with you. I've shared it with several people, and some people clearly did not like it at all. They didn't say it to me, but I could tell by the silence and by the change of topic. And I respect that. It could have been also that I didn't describe it well. It could have been that I said it a little bit too early in the pandemic. But I have started to notice that as I share it with people one by one, many people are starting to say, "Oh, thank you. That's really helpful." I want to warn you before I share it that it is heavy. It is not a nice image, but it is an image that really helps me to wrap my arms around this, really helps me to set my mind in a way that is helpful. And here is this image that helps me to understand how to reframe this. I imagine that in mid-March, I was in a catastrophic car accident with many other people. And right now, I am currently, along with all the passengers in the car, in a deep coma. I will not wake up from this coma until my body is ready. So right now, in my coma, I cannot do anything. I cannot work, I cannot think, I cannot communicate well. I am isolated in my coma. When I wake up from my coma, naturally I will ask the doctor, "Did everybody else in the car make it?" And the doctor will tell me, "No. You're one of the survivors. You're one of the lucky ones. Many of the others didn't make it." And I will have to find out what day it is, what month it is. Maybe my coma will end on May 15th, but it might not. Maybe I'll have to go through the whole summer. If you listened to this past week's Profiles of Endurance episode on my YouTube channel, you heard the story of a family whose daughter was in a car accident and in a coma for 2 years before waking up. How long could this last? I have no idea, nor do the doctors. What they're saying is, pray. When I wake up from the coma, I may need to learn how to walk again, how to talk again. I may have lost a lot of what I had before. It might have atrophied. I will not have worked that entire time. I will not have communicated that entire time. And I think if we look at that as our metaphor, a couple of things become clearer. A person who is in a coma does not complain about not working. The family and the loved ones of someone in a coma are worried about many things, but they are not saying, oh, when are we going to get her back to work? When is he going to be able to be productive again? How is he going to make money? That is secondary. The first thing that we have to worry about is waking up from the coma. People who have a loved one in a coma do not express frustration about how inconvenient this is. They're grateful that they have another day with that loved one and some hope that they will wake up from the coma. They are in fear of the day where the doctors say there is no hope. Or when they go into the hospital and they say, we have some terrible news. There was a change in his condition last night or in her condition. So you see, when you're surviving a car accident day by day in a coma, awaiting the moment that you are ready to wake up and start to resume the beginnings of living again, you don't have time to be upset about money or about frustration. You don't have time to complain about what an interruption this is to your life. It's very clear that you are fighting for life, that your goal is to stay alive, and that all of the other goals are secondary. I think when we look at it this way, and get ready for this because this could sound really harsh. When we look at it this way, we realize that worrying about boredom and even about money, as important as survival is economically, when we look at it this way, we realize that complaining about inconvenience and frustration and money are luxuries for people whose problems are not big enough to be real life and death. I'll let that sit with you for a minute because it's heavy and you may feel really opposed to accepting it. And I understand that. I feel that way too. But I think it's true. And I think you know it's true. Worrying about money comes after there is life to preserve. For the loved ones of those people who didn't survive the accident, they would give all the money they have to bring their loved one back. The fact that you and I are in the coma still proves that we should not be complaining about money, especially within earshot of those who have no loved one and maybe don't have any money either. Do you see how that changes it? All of those things that we think are so important to living, they become very relativized when we recognize that life is the greatest gift and everything else is extra. I think I learned this lesson when I was in 9th grade and one of my dearest friends from childhood, the kid whose house I had my first sleepover when I was 5 at, the one who was my parents' godchild and his parents were my brother's godparents, in 9th grade, his house burned down. And it struck me that he was no worse than I was. We were no better than he was. We were very connected. And that meant that my house could burn down too. And that I wasn't protected from the things that could happen in life. Those things can happen to anyone. I think the fact that there have always been catastrophic car accidents can cause us to think, oh, that would never happen to me. That only happens to other people. But of course, those other people are our neighbors. Every community has families that have loved ones that have either died or been permanently changed by a catastrophic accident. So if it's possible for them to go through that, of course it's possible for us to go through that too. And what's interesting about this catastrophic accident is that it's happening to everybody. We don't have to say, why me or why us? It's the whole world. And while it's understandable that we are worried about money and about what's going to happen to our kids who are going to college and what's going to happen to our job after this, while we have every reason to be concerned, we must put it into perspective because we're alive. And when there's a pandemic, that is not a given. It's a Haitian proverb that says life is the primary gift. Everything else is extra. May we be grateful for the primary gift that we have in our lives right now.